The conference room is dead silent, except for the sound of Zelia's heels hitting the marble floor, sharp, deliberate, like a countdown. She stops at the head of the table, both palms pressed flat against the glass surface, eyes locked on the man sitting across from her, the man she trusted with everything. "Where is my money, Brevyn?" Brevyn leans back slowly in his chair, fingers laced together, a smile crawling across his face that doesn't reach his eyes. "Zaylia, sweetheart, you need to calm down and let me explain." She slams her hand on the table, the sound cracking through the room like a gunshot. Don't you dare call me sweetheart. I gave you $240,000, my savings, my inheritance, everything. Her voice drops to a near whisper, jaw tight, eyes burning but refusing to spill. I trusted you. Brevyn stands slowly, buttoning his jacket with infuriating ease, eyes never leaving hers. "Zaylia, you trusted a dream. That's not my fault." She moves fast, closing the distance between them in 3 steps, one finger driving hard into his chest, her whole body trembling. "My money. Where is my money?" Brevyn looks down at her finger on his chest, then back up at her face, completely unbothered, almost amused. "Zaylia, $240,000, Brevyn." Her voice finally breaks, cracking open at the edges, tears spilling before she can stop them. "That was my mother's insurance money. That was 15 years of saving. I didn't take a vacation. I didn't buy a house. I put it all of it, into what you said was our future. Our future." She's crying openly now, chest heaving, one hand pressed to her sternum like she's trying to hold herself together from the inside. Brevyn tilts his head slightly, exhales through his nose, and smooths the front of his jacket where her finger had been, casual, unhurried, as if she is a mild inconvenience in a otherwise pleasant afternoon. "The investment didn't perform the way we projected. These things happen in business. You knew the risks." She stares at him, tears streaming, mouth slightly open, the disbelief physically visible on her face. "You're not even sorry." He picks up his phone from the table, glances at the screen, and slips it into his breast pocket. "I'm sorry you're upset." She laughs, a short, broken, hollow sound, and steps back, wrapping both arms around herself. "You're sorry I'm upset." He moves toward the door, pausing with his hand on the frame, turning back to look at her one last time, not with guilt, not with shame, but with the mild, detached expression of a man closing a chapter. "You're a smart woman, Zaylia. You land on your feet." The door closes behind him with a soft, clinical click. She stands completely still for a long moment. Then her knees buckle and she catches herself on the edge of the table, sliding slowly into the nearest chair, face dropping into both hands. She doesn't scream. She doesn't throw anything. She simply sits in the silence of that room and comes apart, quietly, completely, the way things do when they have been breaking for a very long time. She doesn't know yet how long the falling will last. She doesn't know that this moment, this cold, glass-walled room, this man with his polished shoes and hollow chest, is not the beginning of her destruction. It is simply the last page of a story that started 24 years ago with a journal, a highlighter, and a heart full of unshakable certainty. Zaylia Monrowe is 45 years old when Brevyn takes everything. But to understand how a woman that sharp, that faithful, that careful ends up handing her life savings to the wrong man, you have to go back to the beginning. Back to the girl she was before the waiting wore her down into something she no longer recognizes. At 21, Zaylia graduates from Howard University with a degree in education and a plan so detailed it fills 12 pages of a leather-bound journal. She is brilliant, warm, deeply rooted in her faith, and absolutely certain that God rewards the patient. The plan is clear. Meet a godly man by 23, marry by 25, children by 29. She maps it out with the same precision she applies to her lesson plans. Color-coded, prayed over, believed with her whole chest. She is not naive. She is hopeful. And in her mid-20s, hope feels like a superpower. Her apartment in DC is small but beautiful. Plants on every windowsill, scripture verses framed above her desk, a vision board pinned above her bed with magazine cutouts of a wedding dress and a family of 4. She leads the praise team at Cornerstone City Church every Sunday, her voice filling the sanctuary like warm light. She mentors teenage girls on Saturdays. She prays every morning at 5:30 without fail. She is, by every measure she knows, doing everything right. But she doesn't know yet that doing everything right is not always enough. She doesn't know that the very faith that holds her up will, in the wrong season, become a weapon she uses against herself. A first crack appears at 26, not dramatically but quietly over Sunday dinner. Celestine, her mother, passes the sweet potatoes with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Celestine sets down her fork, folding her hands on the table with the careful composure of a woman choosing her words, then abandoning caution entirely. Zaylia, baby, Keisha got married last month. Tamara is pregnant with her second. I'm not rushing you, Zaylia looks up slowly, jaw tightening, something cooling behind her eyes. You're not rushing me, Mama. You are questioning me. Celestine waves her hand, reaching for her glass. I'm a mother. It's the same thing. That night, for the first time, Zaylia's prayer sounds less like faith and more like fear. God, please, please don't let me be left behind. By 28, she is adjusting herself. New looks, softer edges, behavior filed down to seem more approachable, less intense, less her. Men appear briefly and disappear without explanation. Each one leaves a mark too small to name but too large to ignore. At 30, she packs up her DC apartment, takes a teaching post in Atlanta, and joins a mega church with a thriving singles ministry, convinced that God is redirecting her, not withholding from her. She believes that. She really, truly believes that. But what Atlanta brings her doesn't heal the wound, it deepens it. And the worst of it, the part that will cost her not just her heart, but every dollar she has ever saved, is still coming. It has a name. The name is Brevyn.
Brevyn Ashcroft walks into Zaylia's life on a Thursday evening in October at a church fundraising gala in Buckhead. The kind of event where everyone is dressed like possibility and smiling like they have nothing to prove. He is 42, broad-shouldered, speaks in a voice that sounds like a decision already made. He finds her by the dessert table, laughing at something a colleague has said, and he simply stands beside her and waits until she notices him. He extends a hand, eyes steady, a half-smile that manages to be both confident and disarming. Brevyn Ashcroft, I've been watching you laugh for the last 5 minutes and decided I needed to know the person behind it. Zaylia turns, one eyebrow lifting slightly, the corner of her mouth following despite herself. That's either the smoothest thing anyone has ever said to me or the most rehearsed. He laughs, genuine, unguarded, head tilting back slightly. Maybe both. Is it working? It is working, and that is the first problem. But we are not at Brevyn yet, not quite. Before him, there is Atlanta, and Atlanta teaches Zaylia things about herself she never asked to learn. The megachurch she joins, Radiant Life Cathedral, is everything she hoped for. 10,000 members, a singles ministry that meets every second Friday with worship, teaching, and enough attractive, God-fearing people to fill a stadium. Zaylia throws herself into it completely. She volunteers, she leads a women's discipleship group. She shows up early and stays late and smiles through every session, titled things like Waiting with Purpose and Trusting God's Timing. Titles that begin to feel, after the third year, less like encouragement and more like a sentence. By 32, something has shifted in the way she moves through the world. She stops attending weddings when she can avoid it. Not because she isn't happy for her friends, she is, genuinely, but because sitting alone in a pew while another woman walks toward a man who chose her has become a specific kind of pain she cannot explain and cannot afford to keep feeling. She sends beautiful gifts and carefully worded apologies about prior commitments, and sits in her apartment, curtains drawn, praise music playing at a volume designed to fill silence rather than celebrate it. Her family notices, and what they do with that noticing is not kind. Her aunt Dreshel corners her at a family cookout in July, voice low but carrying the particular precision of someone who has been waiting to say this for years. Zaylia, I'm going to speak plain because I love you. Have you considered that maybe there's something on you, spiritually? Because at your age, still single. Zaylia stills completely, plastic cup halfway to her lips, eyes going flat. Excuse me? Dreshel leans closer, lowering her voice further, as if the intimacy makes it less brutal. I'm just saying, maybe you need deliverance, some kind of spiritual blockage, because you're a beautiful girl, you love God, it just doesn't make sense unless something is wrong. Zaylia sets her cup down on the nearest table with extraordinary care and turns to face her aunt fully and smiles, a smile so controlled it could cut glass. I'll think about that, Auntie. She walks to her car, sits inside it, grips the steering wheel with both hands, and for the first time in her adult life, she wonders, in a place she would never say out loud, if they are right, if there is something wrong with her, not spiritually, just fundamentally, some invisible deficiency that everyone can see and no one will name directly. That thought is a seed, and it grows. By 34, Zaylia has quietly dismantled herself and rebuilt a version of herself she thinks might be more lovable. She straightens her natural hair. She buys a wardrobe that is softer, more feminine, less professional. She laughs more quickly than she used to and disagrees less than she used to, and prays harder than she has ever prayed in her life. Though the prayers now have a desperate quality she recognizes but cannot stop. She dates 3 men in 2 years. One leaves after 6 weeks without explanation. One tells her she is incredible but that he doesn't feel a romantic connection, a sentence that sounds like a compliment and lands like a diagnosis. The third, a deacon named Percival, dates her for 4 months before she discovers through a mutual friend that he has been seeing someone else the entire time. She confronts him on the phone, voice measured, hands shaking. 4 months, Percival. 4 months of Sunday dinners and Bible study and you meeting my mother. His voice on the other end is uncomfortable but not contrite. Zaylia, I never said we were exclusive. She pulls the phone from her ear, stares at it for a second, then brings it back. I'm 42 years old. I don't do situationships. She hangs up, sits on the edge of her bed, and something in her, something she has been carefully maintaining for 20 years, finally goes quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet, the kind that follows something that has given up. At 35, she tore up her prayer journals. Every page, the ones filled with names she had asked God for, dates she had believed in, promises she had claimed. She tears them slowly, deliberately, over the kitchen sink. And when it is done, she feels something she doesn't expect. Relief. And then Atlanta delivers Brevyn. He is charming in a way that feels earned rather than performed. He quotes scripture and Toni Morrison in the same breath. He remembers everything she tells him, her students' names, her late father's favorite hymn, the way she takes her coffee. He is a foundation director, he says, working on urban education initiatives across the Southeast. He speaks about legacy and impact and purpose, all the words Zaylia has built her life around, and he speaks them fluently, convincingly, like a man who means them. For the first time in years, Zaylia doesn't adjust herself for a man. She doesn't file down her edges or laugh on cue. She's simply herself, and Brevyn tells her repeatedly that this is exactly what he wants. One evening, on his apartment balcony, city lights spreading below them, he reaches across the table and takes both her hands. Zaylia, I want to build something real, not just with you, but with you beside me. I have an investment opportunity, solid, vetted, the kind of foundation that could set both of us up for the next 20 years. She looks at him, something warm and cautious moving across her face. What kind of investment? He holds her gaze, steady, sincere, everything she has prayed for, wearing a suit and speaking her language. The kind that requires trust. And I know I'm asking a lot, but I believe in us. She gives him the money in 3 installments over 4 months, $240,000, every cent of her savings, her mother's life insurance payout that she has been holding sacred for a decade. She gives it freely, lovingly, certain for the first time in years that she is finally moving in the right direction. 6 months later, his phone goes to voicemail. 7 months later, she finds him in that conference room, and he looks at her like a stranger making a scene. The investment, he tells her, didn't perform. These things happen in business. She'll land on her feet. That night, Zaylia sits on the floor of her bathroom, the cold tile, the hum of the ventilation fan, the faint sound of traffic 10 floors below, and she asks God a question she has never asked before. Not why is this happening, not please fix this, just quietly into the silence of a room no one else is in. Is there anything left of me? No answer comes, not that night, but somewhere across the city in a small counseling office attached to a church she has never visited, a woman named Solenne is preparing Sunday's message, and the title she has written at the top of her notes, underlined twice, reads, "You were never the problem." Zaylia doesn't know that yet. She doesn't know that the question she just asked into the silence of her bathroom floor is about to be answered in a way that will undo and remake everything. But it is coming, and this time, for the first time in 24 years, what is coming is not loss.
She finds Solenne by accident. That is what Zaylia tells people afterward, that it was an accident, that she only walked into Calvary Renewed Church that Sunday morning because her car GPS malfunctioned and rerouted her past it, and because it was raining too hard to keep driving, and because she hadn't slept in 3 days and needed somewhere to sit that wasn't her apartment floor. But later, much later, she will stop calling it an accident. The sanctuary is modest. Warm lighting, exposed brick, maybe 300 seats. Zaylia slips into the back row, still in her rain-damp coat, planning to stay 20 minutes, planning to feel nothing. Solenne walks onto the platform in a grey wrap dress and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, sets her notes on the podium, looks out at the congregation, and then, without any preamble whatsoever, says this. She grips both sides of the podium, eyes moving slowly across the room as if looking for someone specific. If God told you today, clearly, finally, without any room for reinterpretation, that you would never get the thing you have been praying for your entire adult life, would you still love him? The room goes still. Zaylia goes completely rigid in her back row seat. Her coat is still dripping. Her hands are in her lap. And something about that question, the specific surgical accuracy of it, reaches into her chest and closes around something she has been protecting for 24 years. She does not answer the question, not out loud. But the fact that she cannot answer it immediately, the fact that she has to sit with it, that it has weight, that it cost her something to even consider it, tells her everything. After the service, she doesn't leave. She sits in that back row while the sanctuary empties around her, caught still on, staring at the wooden cross above the platform. When the last person files out, Solenne is still at the front, gathering her notes, and she looks up and sees Zaylia sitting alone and doesn't hesitate. She walks the full length of the aisle, slides into the seat beside Zaylia without asking permission, and simply sits for a moment before speaking, voice quiet, unhurried. That question got you, didn't it? Zaylia laughs, a wet, broken sound, and presses her fingers to her eyes. Is it that obvious? Solenne tilts her head, gentle but direct, only to someone who's asked it themselves. What follows is not a counseling session and not a sermon. It is simply two women sitting in a quiet sanctuary while outside the rain continues, and Zaylia, for the first time in longer than she can remember, tells the truth. All of it. The journal at 21, the prayers that turned to panic, the wedding she skipped, the version of herself she dismantled and rebuilt again, trying to become lovable. Percival, the silence, the journal she tore up over the kitchen sink, and Brevyn. Every cent of it. Solenne listened without interrupting, without flinching, without offering a single platitude, and when Zaylia finally goes quiet, she turns to face her fully. Can I tell you what I hear? Zaylia nods, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I hear a woman who has spent 24 years trying to earn something she already had. Zaylia stills. The problem was never that you weren't married, Zaylia. The problem is that you made being unmarried mean something was wrong with you. And once you believed that, really believed it, every man who left confirmed it. Every family comment confirmed it. Even Brevyn confirmed it. Not because it was true, but because you handed him a woman who was already halfway convinced she didn't deserve better. Zaylia's face crumbles, not with fresh grief, but with the particular devastation of finally hearing something true. The tragedy isn't being single at 45, Solenne says, voice dropping soft and steady. The tragedy is spending years hating yourself inside a life that was actually full. The change is not instant. Real change never is. But something has cracked open, and through the crack, light begins to move. Zaylia starts seeing Solenne weekly, not as a pastor and a broken woman, but as two people committed to excavating truth. Slowly, session by session, Zaylia begins to separate who she is from what she has been through. She begins to notice the life she actually has, her students who light up when she walks into the classroom, her gift for breaking down complex ideas into language children can hold, the way she makes people feel seen without trying. She starts painting again, something she abandoned at 29 to make more time for church events and singles mixers. She sets up a small canvas station by her apartment window and paints on Sunday mornings before church, jazz playing low, coffee going cold because she keeps forgetting to drink it. The paintings are not technically perfect. They are vivid and honest and entirely hers. She launches a blog, quietly, without announcement, about education and child development, writing the way she thinks, directly, warmly, with the kind of earned authority that only comes from 15 years in actual classrooms. Within 4 months, teachers and parents are sharing her posts across platforms. A school district in Memphis invites her to consult on a curriculum redesign. She says yes. She begins mentoring young women at Calvary Renewed, not with a polished program or a catchy title, but simply by being honest about her own story. She tells them about the journal, the plan, the years of self-erasure, the man who took her money and looked at her like she was an inconvenience. One evening, a 26-year-old named Teslin stays behind after group, arms folded tightly across her chest, voice barely above a whisper. How do you stop feeling like you're running out of time? Zaylia looks at her for a long moment, really looks at her, and when she speaks, her voice carries the quiet authority of a woman who has paid for every word she is about to say. You stop checking a clock that was never yours to begin with. You live now. You become now. You love yourself now. Not after, not when, not once. Now. You are never the problem. You are always the miracle. She meets Omari Blessed on a Tuesday afternoon in February in the education section of a bookstore on Peachtree Street. He is reaching for the same title she is, a new release on trauma-informed teaching, and they both pause, and he gestures for her to take it, and she says there's probably another copy and they should check together. And somehow that becomes 45 minutes of standing in the aisle, talking about pedagogy and grief, and the particular challenge of teaching children who have never been taught that they matter. He is 48, a non-profit director, quietly confident in the way of someone who has done significant internal work and is no longer performing anything for anyone. They meet for coffee, then dinner, then a Sunday afternoon at a museum where they stand in front of a painting for 20 minutes, arguing gently about what the artist meant, and neither of them wants to be right more than they want to keep talking. He tells her about his past, a broken engagement 7 years ago, a woman he loved who chose comfort over commitment, and the 3 years of therapy that followed that he describes not with shame, but with straightforward gratitude. He looks across the restaurant table at her, unhurried, honest. I stopped looking for someone to complete me when I realized I'd been using that search to avoid completing myself. Zaylia looks at him, really looks at him, and something in her chest settles, warm and quiet, like a key finding the right lock at last. I know exactly what you mean. Their relationship builds slowly on the foundation of two people who have already done the hard work and are no longer afraid of what they might find in each other. On the morning of her wedding, a small, sunlit ceremony at Calvary Renewed, 37 guests, white ranunculus everywhere. Celestine finds Zaylia in the bridal room and closes the door behind her. She stands with her back against the door, hands clasped, eyes already full, and when she speaks, her voice has none of its usual composure. I need to say something before you walk out there. Zaylia turns from the mirror, bouquet in hand, waiting. I made you feel like you are failing at something that was not even a test. All those years, the comments, the questions, the pressure. Celestine's voice breaks cleanly down the middle. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Zaylia crosses the room in 3 steps and pulls her mother in, one arm around her shoulders, chin resting on top of her head, eyes closed.
I know, Mama, I know. When Zaylia walks down the aisle toward Omari, toward this good, steady, sane man who never once asked her to be less than herself, she carries something she didn't have the last time she imagined this moment. Not relief, not arrival, not the exhale of a finish line finally crossed. Wholeness, the real kind. The kind that doesn't depend on what happens next. She is not walking toward completion. She was already complete. She is simply, finally, choosing, freely, fully, from a place of abundance rather than hunger, to share a complete life with someone equally whole. And that singular, hard-won, grace-soaked realization is the most beautiful thing she has ever won. What part of Zaylia's story hit you the hardest? Let me know in the comments.
If there is a version of Zaylia in a great many of us, the one who made the plan young and believed in it completely, the one who slowly, quietly began to measure her worth by what hadn't arrived yet, the one who handed pieces of herself, sometimes to God, sometimes to people who didn't deserve them, hoping that enough giving would finally produce receiving. If that is you, hear this. The waiting was not wasted. The pain was not a verdict. And the life you are living right now, in this exact season, is not the waiting room. It is the life. Live it fully. Become fully. Love yourself now. Not after, not when, not once. Now. You were never the problem. You were always the miracle. If Zaylia spending 24 years waiting for a love that almost destroyed her moved you, you need to hear the story of a pastor who married a woman who lived a double life and had a dirty secret. If you liked this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from?